We had a great episode 1. If you haven't checked that out, you'll be able to see that on YouTube. You'll be able to see it on Spotify, and soon many other, wherever you get your favorite podcast, you'll be able to catch us. The Manifest Change podcast, you'll be able to catch that. And for the folks in YouTube land, before I get too far, go ahead and like this, drop us a comment, and subscribe to the Manifest Change page. Yeah, before we get too far, just do all the things that you need to do to stay connected with us. Now, just gonna rock.
Gonna rock.
Let's rock. Welcome back to the Manifest Change podcast. I'm here with Merris Blackwell. I'm your host, Tyrell Jenkins. How's it going, Merris? How you feeling today?
I'm doing well, brother. How you doing, man?
Great, man. Great. Another day above ground, man, is a great day, I would say.
Hey, that's what the elders say, right? That's what the elders say.
That's what they say. We completed episode 1, man. How much work was that, man? Let's just reflect real quick.
All right, let's do it.
On how much work it is to build a podcast from scratch, man. What are your thoughts?
Oh, man. So, if you mind if I take a second, right? So, obviously I had the vision, right? I had the vision on the nonprofit, right? And then I came about, and me and you, we started talking about, how different ways that we can actually, put the word out there. And, you came to me with the idea of the podcast, and I sat back, I thought about it, and I said, yeah, that's a great idea, right? Yeah, that's a great idea. But man, to answer your question as how much work it is, it's extremely tiring. But that goes with anything in life, right? Anything in life worth having, it's going to take dedication, and it's going to take hard work. And it's going to make you uncomfortable. It's going to make you deviate from the norm, So that's exactly what this has done. It's exposing all my shortcomings.
Oh man, nope. We're only going to speak positivity. We talk.
Yeah.
Everybody has things that they're good at, man, and everybody has things that they're not so good at, man. But I'll tell you what, you've been very open about your opportunities, right, to improve, and it's been working, man. We've trying to do something the right way, and that's what I believe in. If you're going, you might as well do it all the way, and so that's what we've committed to, and so you've got the thumbnails, you've got setting up the podcast on Spotify, and soon to be launching on YouTube and things like that. And so yeah, it's a lot, man, but it's worth it. It's definitely worth it.
All right. So, yeah, honestly, it's definitely worth it. And going back to what I said a few minutes ago in regards to making you have to come out of your comfortability, that's always a good thing, right? Because it makes you expand, and it makes you have to reach, and it shows you things about yourself that you never thought was actually possible. Even sitting here right now talking to you, right? We speak candidly all the time, but to actually be sitting here with cameras in front of us, with the vision of this being released for other people to see, that can at times be scary, right? And it takes a lot for you to have to come out of your comfort zone and be able to say, okay, well, my vision is bigger than my fears, right? My desire, in this case, my desire to reach young men who may see this, or whoever may see this, and have them say, hey, the guys on the podcast, they mentioned that it was a struggle, right? They mentioned that it took hard work. They mentioned a bunch of things that they had to endure. But one thing that they never mentioned was that they quit.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that when you take the time to really put your all into something, and even win or lose, but if you know that you put 100% in the task, there's no loser.
Nope. No one is lost. No one is lost, man. And I tell you, I saw a quote. I'm going to butcher the quote, but I'm going to do my best to recall it, because it was so profound, and it really moved me. And that's if you have the privilege of feeling nervous under pressure, then you're right where you need to be. Right. Just imagine just Joe Schmo goes to their 9 to 5 or whatever, does that every day for 30, 40 years, right? Comes home with his wife and 2 children with 2 dogs or whatever the case may be, and does that every single day, doesn't push himself outside of his comfort zone, doesn't try new things, doesn't pick up new hobbies, doesn't pick up a book. Imagine what type of life that is, what type of complacent life that is. But us on the flip side, we're trying new things. We're putting ourselves in situations that may bring us discomfort. But like you said, it pushes you to grow, and it tears away, at the fabric of failure, right? Little by little, as you put yourself in these pressure-filled situations, it forces you to grow and to expand. And all good things happen from being in pressure situations, and sports, whatever, academics, taking tests, standardized tests, or whatever. Having the privilege of being in a pressured situation is a good thing, man. So that's what we're doing, man. That's what we're doing.
Right.
Maybe more so you than me.
Nah, man, we're doing it together. No, we're doing it together. And what you just said made me think back to when I was a teenager. But playing basketball was my thing. In the neighborhood playing basketball, and I would go outside by myself and I would shoot shots, different types of shots, and I would make them. I practice. But looking back now, what I noticed was, if you put somebody on the court, somebody comes onto the court, hey, you want to play a game? We start playing. I become hesitant to take them same shots that I practiced thousands of times. If you added 2 or 3 more players on the court, I would freeze up more. If you put me on a team, and my whole point is this: it wasn't that I was freezing because I wasn't good, right? I had practiced these shots many, many times. I was freezing because I was allowing what I thought the competition, who I perceived to be better than me, as, me being inferior, right?
Right.
And my point with that is saying that you have to be willing to lose, right? Because losing in the sense of, applying for a job, in the sense of going for that promotion, in the sense of making that team, in the sense of, whatever it is that you're trying to achieve, is similar to me as a teenager playing basketball. If you're not willing to put yourself out there, if you're not willing to say, okay, listen, I gave it my all and I lost. But you got to be able to look in the mirror and say, hey, I'm happy and I can live with the results. And a lot of people, they're not willing to live with the results.
Bingo. Some people, and we're gonna change topics here because we could talk about this forever. But I'll tell you, there are some folks out there who live in this space where they're terrified of making mistakes. They will go out of their way to avoid either conflict or turmoil or anything that makes them the slightest bit uncomfortable, because obviously nobody likes to feel pain, right? But as we go into our stories, about our business resumes, if you will, not resumes, but our business histories, one of the themes is absolutely going to be the being comfortable with losing and how that feels, and how it's not necessarily a bad thing to fail a bunch of times, right?
Right.
So as we proceed, right, why we've already talked about in the first episode of the mission of Manifest Change, right? We know that your mission as the founder of Manifest Change is to reach young men and give them the tools that they need to overcome wherever it is they are right now. Most of the young men that you're going to come across are either, still in school or have had a little bit of turmoil or are a little behind in some way. And so your presence in their life as their mentor is going to be that of a person who's going to help build them up, give them these tools that they need to succeed as they reach young adulthood. But what we should be talking about today, and what we will talk about today, Merris, is why we are qualified to be talking about this. Why are you qualified to mentor? What have you been through in your life post Hawaii Pacific University bachelor's degree in marketing that has gotten us to this point? So without further ado, would you like to tell the people in YouTube land and in Spotify world how you got to where you are right now, sir?
So to start off, like you mentioned, yes, I graduated from Hawaii Pacific University. And as we mentioned in the first episode, yes, I was in the military. And between then and now, there's a lot to unpack. But I would say one of the things that makes me qualified, honestly, would be the fact that, raising my son on my own, being a single father, is something that I'm very proud of, but it was something that came with a lot of ups and downs, and that's one of the biggest things, but also along with raising him, I think back to my teenage years, and me having to deal with losing my mother, at 16. And from 16 into now, yes, as I said in episode 1, I had guidance, right? But I've also mentioned that, there was a lot of things I had to learn on my own, and one of the true reasons that I started this nonprofit is because, for all of the young men out there who feel alone, I want them to understand that you're not by yourself. There's someone out there who understands, and I want to pass along the lessons that I've learned to make their path in life a lot easier.
Dope. So you said basically one of the main qualifiers for you is your experience raising your son. How old were you exactly when he was born?
He was born February 2003, so I was actually 22 when he was born. I turned 23 later that year.
So imagine most people would think that that's pretty young, right, to be having a kid. And you were in the Navy at that time.
Well, actually, at that time, I had just got out the military. Right. Yeah, I got out the military, and it was a surprise. His mother surprised me. And to be honest with you, had she not chose to surprise me, I would have stayed in the military. But that's neither here nor there now.
Could be another whole story.
Right.
That's cool. So that situation, with the birth of your son, kind of forced you into a situation where you had to grow up fast. You had to, because as people will tell you, there's no manual for raising kids, right?
Right.
And so, have you always been business minded, or is that something that came, later in life, or when did you start thinking about being an entrepreneur of sorts?
So it's funny that you asked that question, right? And no, it's actually something. When I really think back to it, it's something that I've always had a desire to do. And one of the early stories that come to my mind is, which is the case for most kids who grow up in a poverty stricken environment, right? You're always trying to find a way out. And for me, because I was always aware of my surroundings and what was going on, right? And I grew up in a household, that had its issues, and I didn't want to make the same mistakes that my siblings had made before me, So, but I knew that where I lived and the things that was going on around me, I didn't want to partake in, and there had to be something better out there. So I was always, since I was young, trying to find a way, see what sticks for me. And one of the early things that I can remember is me and my nephew. who's a couple years older than me. They had came out with the Bart Simpson. Remember the Bart Simpson t-shirts?
Of course.
All right.
Of course.
So we used to trace the Bart Simpson shirts, right? And we would put our own twist on it, right? Like I would add an earring, and it's plagiarism, but we didn't know. So, but we're trying to add our own twist to it and say like, oh, we're gonna sell this, right? Or we had this great idea that we were gonna one day, build a laundromat and things like that. So it was always these ideas to try to figure out how we could actually make it, So yeah, so it's always been in me. It's always been in.
And that's so cool, man. And have you had any other for-profit ventures that you've tried?
No, no, I haven't. And to be honest, a very good friend of mine, back when we were, I say early 20s, she always used to say to me, "Hey, after all of the things that you had to endure, like I really think that you should do something like this, where I give back to the community." She always would tell me, "Oh, you should be a mentor. You should be a psychiatrist. You should be something, along that line." And I'd be like, I'm not doing that. I'm not doing that. And ironically, here we are now. So, but nah, never did any of that.
That's cool. I mean, it doesn't even matter, right? Because it still takes a business acumen, right, to run a nonprofit. So whether you have had businesses in the past, it doesn't even matter. It still takes business skills, entrepreneurship skills to run a nonprofit. So that's super cool. That's super cool. And so, one of the things that we did not talk about is your motivation. I guess we kind of skirted around the topic, but your motivation to mentor, where does that come from?
As I said, well, I didn't actually say it, right? But it comes from within, right? It comes from remembering the times when I wish that there was someone there to help me, right? And I'll mention, certain times, right? So, when my mother got sick and eventually passed away, you know, very dark time in my life, being 16 years old and, my mother unexpectedly having a stroke, and then for about a year having to watch her, guess you could say decay. I don't really know the right word, but having to go through that, and just the dynamics of my home life just changing, right? So that's a great time that I wish that there was someone there. But unfortunately, because of events that went on within my family, with people passing away and things like that, there was no one there, and but then I also remember when going further along, certain individuals stepping in and saying, "Hey, Merris, hey, don't do this, do that," right? And how much of an impact that meant, So that's where it comes from. It comes from my innate feeling to say, "Hey, I'm looking at a young man from a distance, and I'm hearing his conversation, and I'm saying, hey, I remember that," because it brings me back to situations, and saying I can help him.
Yeah, I love that. I have a very, very similar mindset because of a shared experience of not having any type of mentors growing up myself. And so we took a few minutes to kind of go over your origin story, right? So you had your son early, you were thrust into the fire to become an adult, right? I mean, because at what, 22, 23, you still don't know anything, right? You're still wet behind the ears, you're still green. So that sharpens your skills right there. That really, if you're any man or father worth his salt, that straightens you up.
Right.
And so you mentioned that you joined the Navy. Obviously, there's lots of shared experiences that you and I have with the Navy, but the Navy, if you don't know, or the military, if you don't have your stuff together, it's going to chew you up and spit you out. So you learned discipline, direction, and you found your identity, or you didn't find your identity. You created a disciplined warrior mentality, through your experiences in the military. And because you didn't have any mentors, or you didn't have someone that could pull you along, you feel deep inside that innate desire to help others. And I think it's admirable, man. I really do. And I actually really connect with that. I can, allow me to share my origin story.
Go ahead, bro. Go ahead, man.
So mine is a bit more detailed, I would say, when it comes to my, how I've gotten to this point. But picking up where we left off in episode 1, where we talked about us meeting at Hawaii Pacific University and how we studied marketing and got our bachelor's degrees. And I went on to continue my education, because I knew post Navy that I was the captain of my own destiny, and that with the tools that the military gave us, and gave, everyone, the GI Bill, that I have no excuse but to succeed. They're paying for everything. They're paying for housing. So I buckled down. I got the MBA, and right before I got out of the military, I did an evaluation of self. And I would encourage anyone that with ears, okay, who's listening to this or watching this, to do the same if you haven't done it already. Take a piece of paper, okay, write strengths on one side, weaknesses on the other side, and be honest with yourself, okay? It's like a T diagram, okay? So what I did as I was leaving the military, this is before any of the degrees, I took an assessment of my strengths and my weaknesses. And I just thought to myself, okay, I can write, I can talk, I love people, I love money. But on the other side, I don't have a lot of motivation. I procrastinate. I listed my weaknesses very honestly. And then I threw that into Google, a personality test, and it kind of it spit out like a direction that I should take. It ended up being sales. And so I first started off as a real estate agent out in Hawaii because I love people, I love money, and the property values were the median at the time. This is 2017. The median was like 650,000 or something like that. The average home sale was about 650,000. So if you take 3% of that being my commission, that's a decent wage to earn. Tried it, failed. Okay. Went to banking because that was the next best thing. I went to a place called American Savings Bank. Went to American Savings Bank, became a teller/banker, learned the ins and outs of personal finance, learned how to organize people's finances and my own finances. So that was a lesson in and of itself. That evolved into mortgages. So I did mortgages for a little while. And in between there, I did a little car sales. But I was chasing money, right? I had bounced around from job to job, from place to place, chasing the almighty dollar. Now, was I getting some money? Yeah, I was definitely getting some money, but I wasn't feeling secure.
Right.
And so ultimately, all of the trials and errors and the trying and failing, as we alluded to at the beginning of this episode, it hardens you, it strengthens you. It really gives you, it's not easy to do it, but if you can continuously overcome it, you're building skills, along the way. You're not only just building your skills, but you're building your network as well. And so eventually I made my way to the government, right, by your leadership. That was a critical point in our friendship where I was complaining to you about how many hours I was working selling cars, how little money I was making in the mortgage business at the time. And you had already been in the government for a few years or a couple years at that point. And so you suggested, hey man, you should try government work. And of course I resisted because, I felt like it was going to bring me back to my Navy times where, folks were going to tell me what to do, when to do it, this and that. Didn't realize that civilian government is much different than active duty military.
Correct.
It changed my life, man. It changed my life. And without dragging this on much longer, from that moment where I had a vulnerable moment with you, and I let you know, man, listen, I've got a family. I'm not making enough money. I'm stressed out. What should I do? You told me straight up, and it has changed my life. Like now, I do consulting work in the field of government contracting, which is where I started my career. I work for one of the biggest consulting firms in the world, and I have the freedom to do just about anything that I want to do within my business workday. Of course, I get my work done. So if anybody sees this, I get my work done. I have unbelievable flexibility.
Make sure you clean that up. Make sure you clean that up.
Exactly. Unbelievable flexibility. Because I've tried and failed so many things at so many things, but I've finally found the thing that works for me, and I'm pretty good at it. So that's my story. And I'm sticking to it.
Nah, man. I remember those days, and I definitely remember that conversation that we had. And man, you was fighting me. You was definitely fighting me, man. We was 12 rounds, man. Because I was like, hey, take this job. I'm not taking that job. They only pay you this much, you know.
It was ridiculous.
Yeah, man.
And I'll tell you what, if I would have known then what I knew now, I would have jumped on it quick.
Nah, man, but that's the thing, right? We could all say that about something in life, you know. So yeah. But it's funny, right? The good part about it is that now that you can look back on it, right? And you can say, oh wow, you know, silly of me, right? But it's a good thing, man. It's definitely a good thing.
It is, man. It is. And you know, moving to the next segment, you know, we're talking about real business lessons that apply to our life. And I tell you what, being a father, just, you know, kind of going back to your story, being a father is one of the most rewarding things that I've ever done. It's also the hardest thing that I've ever done. And if anybody needs any sort of boot camp style introduction to manhood, go ahead and have a child or two, and and that'll get you straight right away. And so, a couple key things, man, like showing up when you have no motivation, right? You're either tired from a long day, or I don't know, you're sore from a workout, you're upset at your partner or your girlfriend or something, but you got those little baby eyes staring up at you, man. That need something from you, that depend on you. That's a business lesson, man. Right?
Definitely is. It definitely is. The only thing is you can't clock out.
You can never clock out.
It ain't no overtime.
Being coachable, right? There's no manual. Well, I'm sure there's plenty of books that were written about, you know, how to be a parent or whatever, but being open to you know, to advice, you know, when it comes to parenting and when it comes to business, super critical. That's super critical to be open to being coachable, right? Like, I don't know everything there is to know about business. I don't know everything there is to know about government contracts and procurement, but I certainly am open to learning from somebody who knows more than me. Same thing with parenting, right?
And that's the thing with parenting, right? Things that applied when our parents were raising us, you know, or better yet, things that applied when they were children may not have applied to when we were coming up. And they definitely don't apply to our children, right? So times change, and you have to be willing and you have to be capable of adapting, you know? And I think that some parents may struggle with that. They may struggle with understanding that what your parents did when raising you, you know, may not have been the best practices.
Yeah.
So one of the things that I made sure that I well, because none of us are perfect. But what I tried to be conscious of was things that my parents did that I believe were good. I kept them. And for the most part, things that I didn't appreciate that my parents put me through or did, I try not to carry that on to my son. Did I succeed all the time? Of course not. But I made a valid effort, and I think that's what parenting is about. It's about, having your child's best interest in the forefront.
Absolutely. And learning from your mistakes.
Learning from your mistakes.
And learning from others' mistakes, right? Just like you mentioned, the things that worked, in quotes, for our parents and our grandparents are not going to work today. It's not going to work today. One of the biggest things that I can take away from how I was raised was the spankings or the whoopings or the beatings, right? However you want to call it, depending on where you're raised.
The beatings. The beatings.
I tell you what, that was a shift, a cognitive shift that I had to have in my mind in partnership with my wife as a critical discussion that we had before my oldest son, who's now 7, before he was born. We had to discuss that. Are we going to spank? And the answer ended up being no. And the reason why is because even though we were spanked and we came out okay, it's abuse, man. It's abuse. And you're literally abusing your kids to try and will them into doing what you want them to do that they may be incapable of doing because their brains haven't developed yet. Right. So that was the toughest thing about, it's still tough. Honestly, it's still tough. Because timeout is not always the answer.
Right.
But it's like, what are you supposed to do? I've made a commitment to myself, to the Lord, and to my wife that I wasn't going to beat my kids. And so we don't beat them. But I tell you, but it's very, very difficult.
Right.
Very difficult.
And just like you, I come from a similar, way of being disciplined, right? And I held some type of resentment towards my mother in regards to that, right? And because she was the disciplinarian in the house, and I'm laughing because I remember the one and only time my father called himself giving me a whooping, and it was crazy because I had I had forged my mother's signature because I had failed the math test, right? I mean, like failed, and I saw the grade and I'm like, oh no, nobody's ever seeing this, right? And so I signed my mother's name and I gave it to the teacher. Now my young mind is not thinking like boy, you really flunked this test. So no respectable parent is going to just sign this with no note, no nothing, no explanation.
Right.
No explanation, nothing. She just signs it and oh yeah, So I give it to the teacher and instantly she must have, like he signed this, now whether or not, well, obviously my handwriting looked nothing like my mother, but whatever. So she calls my mother and when my mother comes to the school, they have their discussion. Obviously, I'm getting cursed out all the way home, walking home. So my father comes home. And you hear this story all the time from your parents. Wait till your father gets home. I'm blah, 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 blah. But my mother always looked out for me, So this one particular time I'm in my room and my father comes in, old fashioned. My mother takes care of, all his, his belongings, whatever. And all I hear is, let me tell you what your boy did today. Heart stop, bro. Heart stop.
She couldn't wait to tell him.
She couldn't wait. So it started sounding like Alvin and the Chipmunks. I couldn't make it. All I heard was, huh?
It was a blur. Everything
was a blur because my heart went, down there. Yeah. And all I hear is, boy, get over here. So I didn't know whether to run, walk slow, jump out the window. I didn't know what to do, right?
Yeah.
So I go in the room. And he's like, so my mother walks out with a smirk on her face. She done set me up, bro. She done set me up. So he like,
accomplice.
Yeah, exactly. So he's like, oh, you want to do this forgery, right? I don't know what he's talking about.
Yeah.
I don't know forgery. I don't even know what you're talking about. I just signed I didn't even know what the word was for what I did.
Exactly.
So I remember he goes in the drawer, all these belts, pulls out the belt. Now, my father was a talker. I'm going to do this. Next time your mother tell me this, I'm going to do that. Never seen him grab a belt. So he grabs a belt. My brain is shocked. So he's like, drop your pants. Now in my mind, I'm like, hey, you're taking this too far. Right?
It's too far, yeah.
Yeah. So I go to take my pants off and he hits me. But it was strange because it didn't hurt, right? Because my mother, who was the disciplinarian, she, how it is, belt, fist, whatever she grabs.
Yeah.
Right? Whatever
she puts her all into it.
And she puts her all into it. Right? And she puts her all into it. But my father, he hit me this one time and then that's it. So then my mind thinks, okay, fake, so I fake cry, whatever the case may be, and things like that. But yeah, man, it to this day, it was like weird because, like I said, my mother, she was the one that laid down the rod in the house.
Now, that's so funny. Yeah, my mother was the one that would do just like how she did. Let me tell you what your boy did. And
Yeah.
my dad was the one that would carry it out.
Wow. The execution?
Yeah. And I always knew the drill. I probably only got beat like 6 or 7 times though. I was kind of a good kid. But it was one of those situations where I would have to go, if I was going to get a beating, I would have to go straight to my room. And it could be 6 o'clock. It could be 11 o'clock at night. It could be 1 o'clock in the morning. Bust in and just start going with no talking until it was over. Right. And so that's just that level of fear and anxiety. I didn't want to create that for my kids. I want to teach lessons without them having to actually like fear me. I don't want them to fear me, so everybody's different, but parenting, man, that is definitely one way to grow up if you need to grow up. Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, but yeah, so why business is not just money? Why is it, business or parenting is important for our nonprofit mission. Okay. So let me try and connect the dots here. I can tell you that being a board member of Manifest Change, I'm well qualified to assist you with helping young men because I have a robust business history. I have started and failed 3 or 4 different businesses since I graduated with my bachelor's degree 12 or so years ago, however long. I've learned through the military structure, responsibility, how my actions impact the greater whole of an organization, how service and stewardship align with the nonprofit mission or impacts. And so if I'm ever placed in a situation where I have to mentor young men, either in place of you or beside you, my history has qualified me and has given me the tools to be able to assist this Manifest Change mission. So I'm honored to have an opportunity to do that with you, man.
Oh man, I'm definitely honored to have you by my side along with the rest of the board members. I think that what we're building, what we're striving for is definitely something that's going to benefit a number of young men. Even this conversation here, even if you aren't yet a parent, or if you haven't made it to where you want to in the business world or whatever your wish for your next endeavor to be, hopefully you could take the lessons, because it's not about, you don't always have to be in that exact situation for the lesson to be relatable, just like you mentioned, as far as being a parent, and, you have your child and you made a decision with your wife to say, hey, I'm making this executive decision that I don't want what I had to endure, right, to be something that my child years from now has to cope with, which is no different than a young man right now having to make an executive decision on whatever it is that it may be. People who watch this, they just have to be able to take what's ever applicable to them. It's like Tetris. You got to turn the part until you figure out which one fits for you.
Exactly.
So me and Tyrell, we're going to give you a lot of our lives experiences. Game. That's what it is. We're giving you game. And now you have to take those parts and just apply it to your life. If it applies. If it doesn't apply to if what we're saying doesn't apply to you, that's okay.
Absolutely.
But for those that it does,
buckle up. Yeah. Stand by. Stand by. Because I'll tell you what, one thing I know for sure is that we're going to talk a lot about the things that we've done right, a lot of the wins, but we're also going to be authentic enough to share mistakes,
right,
the steps, and things that we would change about some of the decisions that we made in our journeys, right? Sometimes when ego may have gotten in the way of some decisions that maybe we should have made, some missed opportunities, that we may have had that we missed out on for whatever reason. And so I would encourage anyone who has made it this far in episode 2 to hang tight. We're going to talk about lots of different things, lots of different areas of business and of life. And it's not always going to be rainbows and sunshine. We aspire to dig deep into all of it, the good and the bad, so that we can really reveal authenticity. That's our main goal here.
Right. Because this podcast isn't to sit here and gloat, and say, hey, I did this, right? Or Tyrell to say he did that. It's to be authentic, as he said. And to be authentic, you have to be willing to bear the good and the bad.
Exactly.
And with that being said, right, there are numerous situations that he and I have experienced where, there's from one situation, there may be something good, but from that same situation, there may be a negative. Vice versa, where, because, for example, when you mentioned, you and your wife, you strive to not repeat some of the things that your father had done. I myself, in my mind and in my heart, I had the same, what would I say? Right? Desire, right? But I fell short because it was my understanding. See, I see parenting as this, right? Not saying that it's right, but I can understand when a child is young, right? A parent feeling like, you may have to smack their hand or something like that, because that child isn't old enough to understand. But once that child reaches an age where he's able or she's able to comprehend, there's no reason to use violence.
I agree.
Because you should be able, as an adult, you should be able to, one, control your temper, and two, you should be able to have a conversation with that child and explain to that child why why they can't do, they shouldn't do, whatever the situation is. You should be able to explain that to them. Right?
Definitely.
But here's the thing. It's easy to know right from wrong. But the most important part is when you're in a situation where you're having a bad day, the bills need to be paid, whatever trials and tribulations goes on in the world, right? Being able to apply what you know is right on, right?
Yeah.
And have I fallen short? I fell short, right? But you have to be able to admit that in any situation. You have to be able to look in the mirror and say, hey, listen, I fell short. If it's someone that you offended, then you go and you ask for their forgiveness, because what's done sometimes is done, right? What's said is said. You can't change the past. but you have an obligation, right, to do better in the future.
Yeah, absolutely. Reconciliation is a big part of knowing self. Being able to say that or admit rather that you've made a mistake is critical. It's critical. It's critical in that, like, that humility factor. Be humble enough to admit that there's something that you don't know, or there's something that you did not do correctly. And so, why are we doing this podcast right now, man? We're doing it because we have an opportunity, we have an obligation to educate the youth, man. We have so much knowledge that we're going to share on this podcast. We haven't done it earlier is because it hasn't been the proper timing, right? The divine timing of everything. Nothing happens by mistake or by accident. Mm-hmm. We're doing it now because the time is now. Look at the economy. Look at the state of politics. Look at the state of our interpersonal relationships with our fellow man. Times are hard out here. Times are hard out here in so many ways.
Definitely.
So the timing is right. We're both mature enough. We have the proper tools. So there's no better time to get on here, let people hear our stories, give people encouragement. And that's what, the Manifest Change podcast and the manifestchange.org is all about. So we're excited to keep this going. Now, I would like to encourage anybody that's watching us on YouTube or listening to us on Spotify to contact us, right? We need, show ideas. We're willing to hear your opinion on what we should cover on this podcast. Any questions you may have about business, school, life, personal confidence, anything, right? We're an open book, me and Merris and I.
Yeah.
We the collective.
Yeah, and to add to that, in the near future, we are looking into actually going live and providing our viewers with the opportunity to ask us questions. Because we want to maximize the things that people can learn and the access that they have to us. And we want to help people in real time. So yeah. I think real soon we'll definitely we'll implement that to where people can call in, and ask whatever questions that they may have that can benefit them, because as Tyrell said, we have a lot of experience. These gray hairs ain't here for no reason.
Think for yourself. I had maybe
you out here dying them.
I got maybe 2 gray hairs in my chin and 6 on top of my head.
Well, man, I don't got no hair, so
yeah, that part of your life has reached its sunset. Yeah. Not here to preach to these folks. We're here to walk with you, right? We're here to hold your hand, because we both believe in the spirit of giving, and we both believe in the spirit of helping. And this is exciting for both of us and our immediate friends and family who know that we're doing this. Lots of folks gave us some pretty good feedback on episode 1. So this is essentially the end of episode 2. I don't know if you have any other parting thoughts. We've been going for quite some time. We got to leave more meat on the bone for future episodes. So parting thoughts now would be a good time.
All right. I got nothing else to say, man. Everybody out there, you have a good night, and make sure you tune into episode 3.
Yeah, I feel the exact same way. Hey, again, if you're seeing us on YouTube, like the video, comment, subscribe. Also, share episode 1. Episode 1 dropped on Christmas Eve. So share episode 1, like, comment, subscribe on the YouTube, and until next time.
Peace.
Peace.